Hi, everybody. Welcome to Top Glass Online. First up, we have Natalie Thibault. She is the Technical Director of Canadian Affairs for the Fenestration and Glazing Industry Alliance. Hi, Natalie.
Hello.
How you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Good to see you. Next, let's bring in Andrew Dolphin. He is the General Manager of Glass Operations for BV Glazing, and he's also the President of the Ontario Glass and Metal Association, right, Andrew?
That is correct. Good morning, Pat.
Good morning. Good to see you. Next, we have Mike Bruno. He is the president of Illumatex and the Everlast Group of Companies, and he's the vice president of Fenestration Canada. Hi, Mike. Oh, you're on mute, Mike.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for
There
having
he
me.
is. Good man. How you doing?
Very good, thank you.
And finally, we have Peter Dushensky. He is the managing director of Glass Curtain. They are a fiberglass manufacturer in, well, you're out in Alberta, right, Peter?
That's right, Pat. Yes, we are.
Yeah, good. Okay, so let's go around the let's just go around the table quickly. Tell me, I guess, where you are and basically what you're doing in your job these days. Let's start with Natalie.
Okay, so Natalie Thibault, 20 years in the industry. Previously worked for a fabricator and now working for the Fenestration and Glazing Industry Alliance. For those who are not familiar with this newly formed organization, it's the result of a unification between IGMA, which was the Insulating Glass Manufacturers Alliance with a head office over in Ottawa in Canada, and AMA, which was the architectural
American Architectural
Manufacturers Association.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a mouthful, isn't it? Yeah.
So many A's.
Thanks, Natalie. Andrew, what are you up to these days?
Yeah, so I'm general manager for glass operations at BV Glazing. We have our own glass plant servicing our window wall, curtain wall, and railings divisions. Basically, I run that. And also president of Ontario Glass and Metal Association for my second year now.
Mike, what keeps you busy?
Acting as president of Everlast Group of Companies, expanding across Canada as a whole, and VP of Fenestration Canada. Been there for, I think, 10 years now. Supposed to be president this year, but because of COVID, we've extended that for one extra year. So working on helping the industry on the residential side grow and become more prevalent in the Canadian marketplace.
Awesome. Peter, tell us all about you.
Yes, managing director of Glass Curtain. Have been since 2013 when we commercially launched. We're a manufacturer of fiberglass framed curtain wall systems, which are now the highest thermally performing curtain wall systems in the world. And that's I'm based here in Edmonton, and we do our fabrication in Calgary. We have installation partners across the country.
Awesome. Well, listen, thanks to all of you for being here for sure. These days we can't do anything without starting off with some COVID talk. So let's I guess we'll go back again to Natalie. Natalie, you're obviously taking on a big role at the FGIA Association. You're talking to people really all across the continent. What are the feelings out there from the membership about the pandemic and how it's going to affect business?
Well, obviously, it's put a big stop to any travels. A lot of the companies had for a long time, employees had to stay home, had to start working from home. In many cases, especially among manufacturers, it wasn't necessarily something that was happening very often. A lot of companies, weren't necessarily organized to have remote workers. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, I believe, in their transition. For those who were more accustomed to that kind of way of working, I guess it was more smooth. But in terms of sending people on the road, we saw some people that were they have to stay home until the end of the year. Some others, in some other states or provinces, it's a little bit more open. People are allowed to travel, but only for essential visits. In terms of, let's say, certification, we had some plants that were not welcoming anyone, any auditors even. We had to conduct some audits remotely. So a big change in the way we were used to doing things, even events. We were supposed to go to the ASTM meeting at the end of March, and then that got shut down. So a lot of events moved to virtual, whether it's ASTM, whether it's even the National Building Code Standing Committees now have been held online since April. And it's a bit of a sprint at the moment because we're at the end of the code cycle. So it's a lot of online calls, and it's not necessarily something we've been used to in the past. We did conduct a survey among our members to see what they were interested in seeing, because now that everybody is at home, maybe there's more time for training, more time to stay abreast of what goes on in the industry, the trends, percentage of sales in various regions. So we've been trying to keep close to our members to see what they were looking for in terms of training programs, at least.
Andrew, one thing you can't do online is make glass. What have you guys had to do on the shop floor?
Well, it's been a lot more PPE, so masks became necessary for all workers. Not even if it's even if you're 12 feet away from someone, to get on the shop floor, just like before with glasses, you have to have a mask on. Hand washing stations placed all over the place. We shut down a lot of common areas as well, so like lunchrooms and things like that, and then added a lot of disinfecting to the plant. So, nightly people are going and disinfecting in areas, that multiple people might touch and things like that. So really just a lot of that kind of stuff happens.
Mike, when your guys are going out to install, what do they have to do?
They're asking questions to the owners or tenants in high-rise buildings. We did a project for Toronto Housing, and we had a list of all the tenants, and if any of them had any symptoms, there were 0 cases, but the guys are changing booties per unit, gloves per unit, masks per unit, just taking as many safety precautions as possible. Tenant is in an opposite room of where we're working, or sometimes not in there. On the residential side, pretty much the same application, asking questions, standard procedure.
Yeah, going in the house?
Going in the house, same thing. You know, it's before an appointment's booked, make sure that they haven't traveled or haven't been exposed, what the symptoms are, ensuring that, they're not in the same working area that the guys are in. Cleanliness is obviously very, very important on both aspects. So proper cleanup, pretty much, basically like going to a grocery store, right? Just taking all the precautions necessary.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention too, we do the same thing with a survey before anyone can come in, plus take their temperature. So we do a temperature check at the door as well as a survey.
Really, eh?
Yeah.
What did those thermometers cost?
I think they're about $300.
Yeah. I always kind of wondered about that.
And we all look better with a mask on, right?
Yeah. It's improved the image around the plant. Peter, what do you think of that? What do you think of those poll results? Do you worry that we're going to see a big decline in commercial real estate investment? Peter, you're on mute, I think.
Sorry, thank you. I didn't catch that National Post article, but I think I like the idea that that commercial real estate will probably just spread out from the center rather than being quite as concentrated as it is currently. I can definitely see that it's not going to go away. People are still going to want to spend time together in offices, but that it may not be quite as centralized. There may be fewer returns to 100-story buildings. And you may see, Scarborough have a bunch of towers, and wherever, like the whole GTA area, or wherever, greater Vancouver area, even where we are in Edmonton or Calgary, more spreading out. I think so. Just I think a different kind of commercial construction, but I don't think that you're going to see a complete move away from that.
Yeah, I found it's down to personalities. I mean, you've got some people like myself who are work from home anyways and are quite happy doing it and don't feel any particular impetus to get back. And then you have other people. I suspect like Mike Bruno, who would probably burst into flames if they couldn't rub shoulders with other human beings on a regular basis. It's down to there's some people that are going to want to get back and others that aren't for sure. That's I think it'll be interesting to see how things change. I mean, everyone's so comfortable with these web conferences now, right? I mean,
yeah, and I might just add that I think as comfortable as all of this is, it's still formal, right? Like you still have to schedule something, and there's still something about like the spontaneity of real life that you just run into someone, you have a 30-second conversation at the water cooler, at the coffee machine. You know, there's certain that the informality, the casualness, I think is very hard to replace online, essentially.
Well, we're doing great on time here. Let's move on. Peter, I'm going to stay with you to start with.
Sure.
Energy standards. They're tightening. Everybody's the NRCan and all the government levels are making a lot of noise about trying to push people to get to net zero on the residential side, and well, I guess they'd like to do that on the commercial side too, although it seems less possible. Peter, how's our industry going to get there? Is there a chance of, like, is there a way that we can get to these net zero targets that the feds keep talking about?
Yeah, I think there is. I think there absolutely is. And you know, I think you know, sort of in the sort of outline question, you're sort of wondering, you know, is it achievable? Can project owners pay? And I think I think the sort of gold standard in the industry right now is you know, probably not very hard to say, the BC Energy Step Code. And it seems to me like what I've seen there, anyways, I've spent a lot more time there in the last couple of years, is that owners are more than happy to pay if they feel like they're engaged. And it seems to me like BC has done a phenomenal job with outreach. They've really set the bar for the rest of the Canadian provinces in terms of engaging the community and doing grassroots level community engagement, which I think is absolutely essential in the internet age that we're in, where peer-to-peer communication is absolutely the norm. You know, people really resent, you know, top-down authority and just like diktats from like on high just being thrown at them. So the BC model of doing a lot of community outreach, a lot of community engagement, a lot of documentation, a lot of like promotion is super important, and I think really well done there. And other jurisdictions, I think, with you know, some sense of self-preservation will do the same as BC. So yeah, I think it will certainly happen.
Natalie, you've been heavily involved in all the standards making really for a few years now. Pick up Peter's point there. Is it important to have a voluntary, flexible aspect to this rather than a sort of a top-down approach where the government says this is what we're looking for, do it or not?
Well, what I can say to that is that, you know, as an industry, in the past 3-4 months, we've created a small informal coalition between some important players that have been involved at the code level for many years. We have Zaina Gordon from FNBC, we have Jeff Baker from Westlab, Margaret Webb, my counterpart at FGIA, as well as Robert Jutras from UL, representing the Quebec Association. It's been a serious battle this year so far. The National Energy Building Code has got a target from NRCan, and they will pursue it. What we've been successful, we think, it's not completely over yet, but the problem is that there's so much effort in reducing the energy waste, if you will. I shouldn't call it that way, but they want to improve the energy efficiency of buildings no matter what, and windows keep getting targeted. whether it's on the commercial side or the residential side. And in the latest proposed changes that there were for the next cycle, for the 2020 version of the NECB, in the proposed changes, there was a reduction in U-value as well as a reduction in fenestration and door window area. We believe that we have managed to get the FDWR put to the side for the next code cycle for discussion, but the U-values will have to get reduced once again, despite the fact that they were reduced mid-code cycle in 2017 in the NECB. So we have, as an industry, I believe, to improve our products. And yes, I understand that there's a cost benefit, like Peter was saying, but we need to make sure that we get to that sweet spot where we have the right products at the where the individual owners or promoters will feel that they get a return on their investment.
Mike, you've been involved in trying to build a more energy efficient windows, I know. What's that experience been like? What have the challenges been like?
Well, I mean, I know firsthand that actually FedCan has also participated at the CAN level with actually all our technical director is the chair of that committee. So the challenges that I have with the more stringent requirements, and I've been asking this for years, is to actually do a carbon footprint study, actually show some data to the fabricators and members on, you know, producing 50%, like they're talking about triple, producing 50% more glass to fill in the same amount of square footage, transporting it, delivering multiple deliveries because now everything's heavier and takes up more space, glazing on site, which is going to mean more people on site installing. You know, those are all key factors when we're talking about that. I hope they've taken that into consideration on a carbon footprint aspect of it, because I think saving energy going from, you know, a double with 2 coats of low ease to a triple with 2 coats of low ease, the gap isn't as much from clear to a triple, from a double clear to a triple. So I think a carbon footprint study is very, very important. I know I drive an electric vehicle, but I know that to make the batteries for it, it's equivalent to driving a gas-powered vehicle for 8 years. So really, you know, we're talking about green, but is it really green, right? Yeah. And those are the aspects. The other problem that we're going to have with the new energy code is going to be the people to install the product. I mean, glass is getting bigger, windows are getting larger, heavier, more equipment. Now we're mobilizing more equipment on site to do jobs, which shunting of lifts, zoom booms, skyjacks. You know, I really think if we had some real data, and I know that we've been asking, or I've been asking personally on my end for our association and our industry and my own company, what the benefits are. In my house, I put in double, just one low E. It's very comfortable. You know, my air conditioner doesn't run 24 hours a day. My heating doesn't run 24 hours a day, you know, and nothing beats, bad to say, but nothing beats a well-insulated wall with insulation. I know I shouldn't say that on this call, but in reality, I don't think we can get glass to perform like an insulated wall with exterior styrofoam and everything. I think we can in a quad surface maybe, but you know, where do we stop pushing the envelope? That's my take on it. So.
You just undermined everything Natalie and her posse have been fighting for up in Ottawa. There's still the pushback on the wall ratio thing. We're going to circle back to that actually. Andrew, what product changes from your guys' end for energy efficiency have your customers been asking for that? Because you guys are in a slightly different market, I think, than Mike.
Yeah, in the residential high rise, still mostly double silver, low ease, sometimes incorporated with a tint, you know, for some more solar control. But you know, we haven't even seen much of a push to triple silver low ease. You know, on some buildings you see it, and you know, the 4th surface low ease are starting to become more popular for quoting. Haven't really seen a lot of developers actually go for it yet. So, you know, basically it's pretty much the same as it's been for the last 10 years or so. Double silver units. The big change is more through the sound transmission. So everything's becoming wider. They're using different size thicknesses of glass and things like that to try and incorporate higher STC levels as we build closer to railroads and highways and everything like that. That's been more of the bigger change, that with bird friendly than energy code. But I know that's going to change soon. So, and just point, these silvers are the silver coatings they're kind of stretched to their maximum now. So the next step is going to be triples, which they've been threatening for 20 years, but it sounds like it actually, if the energy codes do increase, that's where it'll go, and that'll be a pretty different shift in our industry because of weights and things like that, and design and all that kind of stuff. So interesting to see what happens.
That's it. Those are interesting points, Andrew, because that came out in some committee meetings that I was at. Well, they were industry focus group type things, asking about how we're going to drive demand for the high performance products. And one of the things that came out of that is that the comfort, it's really going to have to be a comfort and experience thing to a large extent, right? I mean, if you're going to sell this stuff to a developer, you got to be able to tell them the building is going to be better for the occupants, not just on the energy side of it, right?
And to Mike's point, is there the solid data that it's going to be that much better? From an owner's standpoint, is he going to have less of an HVAC cost, or what I mean? So until it's actually regulated that they have to do it, they still kind of swim to the the most cost efficient ways to do things.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I have a question on the STC ratings, because I saw some the other day. They're asking for, we built a commercial rated aluminum window. They're asking for a 48 on a picture window with 10 mil lamy on the exterior, 10 mil on the interior, with almost on some rating charts I've seen like a 4-inch airspace. How is the commercial side gonna, or how, Andrew, you making glass, how do you deal with a 4-inch overall IG double?
I don't even think I don't even know if you can get a spacer to do that big. I don't know.
No.
Maybe some specialties. We kind of max out at 1 inch here, so we got a 1-inch airspace that we that's as far as we can go. They're starting to put a lot of pressure on your pumps, and the bending machines are only rated up to, I think, about 1 1/8 inches is the maximum that most of your bending machines can go to. So I don't know where you'll get a 4-inch spacer bar from.
Was a request by an engineer.
Yeah. We'll design some new product for you guys right here. Let's just get that stuff all sorted out. Natalie, a question actually coming in for you. You mentioned a reduction in U values in the latest code coming up. The question is, does that mean a lower or higher energy reduction? Well, reduction in U values.
The lower the U value, the higher energy efficiency you will have. So it's always in the hopes of getting to the target that's been set for 2030 at 0.18, I believe.
It's 0.08 or what are they center of glass they were looking for? Was it 0.08 by 2030 or 2032?
It's 0.8, but I don't know that it's center of glass. It's the U values for fenestration that have been set.
It's the overall U value. Okay. Peter, is that's totally achievable with existing technology, right? It's just a question of cost. What if you had to look in a crystal ball and say, how are people going to address the cost issue? What do you think they'd do?
How are people going to address the cost issue? I think that it's a matter of bringing those costs down into reason. If we look at sort of high performance materials or something that'll allow us to get there, like the glass technology exists. That's why we focus on the framing technology. But if you look at, if any of you guys are also sort of car buffs, you'll remember from the early 90s, you started seeing composite carbon monocoque safety cells in cars. So really, really high performance cars like the McLaren F1 and the Bugatti EB110, like $1 million plus cars. And today you can get those in, you know, an electric BMW i3 for 40 grand or 50 grand. So we saw a 25-fold reduction in about 25 years in that kind of technology, with, of course, a lot of resource and a lot of investment in that space. And I see no reason why over the next 25 years we couldn't see a similar reduction in say composite material or really composite material framing for the application to make it affordable for, you know, multifamily, single family. Because right now we have to focus on the institutional market, because we have to find a client who can see a long-term ROI, who's interested in, you know, owner occupancy, and actually going to enjoy, really enjoy and realize the benefits of cost savings over, you know, over a 20, 30, 40-year time horizon. The multifamily residential market is, like Andrew was saying, always going to find the path of least resistance, and they're going to follow. But the leaders are going to be really the institutional and the public markets, the public market sectors. And I think that it's a matter of time and investment, and a lot of players trying different angles to get there.
Mike, was that the electric McLaren that you're driving then? Is that what I'm understanding here, or oh, you got a Tesla?
He's muted.
You muted, Mike.
It's the Tesla, but just to Peter's comment, you know, we're going into a time in our multi-res where it's going to be more driven by rental rather than ownership units.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's great that we're going to have the technology that's going to bring in more efficient windows, but what's going to happen is that the building owners who are fighting the change now, they're going to reduce the size of the windows and the amount of windows that are operating in a building. So the cost of coming down is actually not going to happen, because we won't get the mass on it. We won't get the volume on it. What's going to happen is when you own the building, and we do a lot of punch out replacement work here, right? It's in Toronto, it's one operating window per room, as small as possible, that meets the minimum code requirements, because there's a service aspect to it. So if the new builds change to a rental market rather than a selling of condos and high-rise that are full unitized system, curtain wall systems, or punch-out windows, they're going to, the cost is going to be more beneficial for them to make their walls more energy efficient than their windows more energy efficient. So we're going to reduce the amount of homes. We've seen that in the residential segment, where a typical house would have had, you know, 30 windows, a 3,000 square foot house. Now a 1,600 square foot house has 3 openings in the front, 3 in the back, and nothing on the side. So yeah, technology and time will reduce the cost, but I don't think we'll have the volume that will help reduce it as dramatically as we've seen in the car industry or in other segments. That's my opinion, whatever it's worth.
It's worth a lot. All opinions are great here. Here's an opinion, and it's going to take us into sort of our next topic here. Matt Misra, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, has come in with a question. It's a very long question, but it relates to something I think that's been a big topic for quite a while, is Chinese imports, foreign competition. Probably going to start with you on this, Andrew, just because that's what we had talked about. You know, well, Matt says, with regards to importing glass from China, number of concerns given the current climate. You know, obviously things are trade-wise getting a little hostile. There's some issues with Chinese trade right now between Canada and the U.S. and North America generally. Andrew, I guess the first question is, are you seeing still a lot of foreign product coming in, competing with you guys, since they put those tariffs in place, or has a lot of that gone away?
Well, like the tariffs that are in place are on the assembled unitized
right.
wall, or on a limited certain number of extrusions,
Right.
there isn't tariffs on glass currently.
Right.
And you know, glass, I think large jobs have seen a turnover to some Chinese product and things like that, but because glass is, you know, usually the last thing ordered and things like that, there's been, and you need replacements and things like that, it hasn't really shifted over to the foreign market from the you know, the in-home. So, you know, yeah, obviously, if you're buying anything from China right now, there's a potential risk of some kind of sanctions or things like that, you know, bilaterally between Canada and the EU, or, you know, Canada and America, or all three. And, you know, that will, well, there's a risk you'll have to take, and you'll have to, you know, you have to put those kind of contingencies into your quoting model, I guess.
Yeah. That's interesting. How would you do that? I guess just take a guess at what your risk is. And
well, yeah, I mean, most people, if you're going to go buy offshore like that, you're looking for some significant savings, and they're not usually always just passed on over to the, you know, to the owner or to the
right.
selling to. So, you know, you have to keep yourself some kind of reserve for in case something happens and you have to switch it to local, or you know, quality issues or things like that. You know, so. It's
Natalie,
tricky.
what are you
hear
hearing?
Horror stories, and you hear success stories, right? So it's
yeah,
like
for sure. Yeah, exactly. You hear both, right? I mean, the quality is kind of what you pay for, right? I mean, it's
I think so. Yeah, I know. You know, if you're using one of the top companies in China, then you know their quality is actually really good, and they've got, you know, very high technologies of glass products. But you know, if you go for the bottom of the barrel, cheapest one you can find, well, then you know you're probably going to get that.
Mike has vanished on us. Hopefully, Mike, if you can hear us, your webcam is off. Anyways, Natalie, what are the what's the discussion? There he is. What's the discussion at FGIA? You get into contact with more Americans through now that the associations are unified. Is there widespread concern about competition from China? I guess I would say both on the supply side and the competition side, right? Like, because people can be worried about either one. If they're getting stuff from China and there's a trade shutdown, or if the trade is too open, they can be concerned about competition on the other side.
I have to admit it's been very quiet on that end. I don't know if it's because of the crisis that we're in and the fact that the economy is not necessarily in overdrive as of now. But it seems like this is less and less talked about, at least in recent months. Whether it's on the East Coast, you know, it was more European products that were coming in. And then on the West Coast, it was more Asian products, but it's quieted down on that front with the crisis.
Yeah. What do you think? I'll get you in political trouble. What do you think about tariffs? Is it something that Canada should be doing? I mean, we are doing it on unitized, assembled unitized, and honestly, it helped. I guess from the perspective of a Canadian manufacturer, it basically eliminated a couple of the big Chinese players right out of the market. Is that the kind of thing we should be doing, though?
Well, I think as an industry, we need to make sure that we protect our members. We need to make sure that we protect our individuals that are involved in making their industry grow for their climate, for their geographical location. And we should probably extend it to the glass as well as far as tariffs go. Just to jump in there
quickly, sorry. You know, like they were charged with dumping, right? So this isn't fair production, you know, like we might have with Europe or someone else. You know, this is them dumping product into, you know, and yeah, every country needs protection from that, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, when you have billions of essentially government dollars, tax dollars being redirected back into into
Yeah,
manufacturing, then
there's subsidized product coming in here and just dumped into our market. You know, you can't have that. That needs protection. Fair market, you know, through global trade. You know, probably, you know, I'd probably lean towards it's more of a good thing, but certainly, you know, when everyone has to be playing by the same rules for that to work.
Absolutely. Peter, you're fabricating curtain wall. What did you guys ever see any impact from competition from Chinese Unitized, or?
We being exclusively stick built curtain wall system,
right.
We don't really see much if any competition from Chinese systems. Interestingly, we actually compete more against European systems, also being imported into North America. And it's usually either German or Belgian or increasingly some Polish or Czech. It's the Passive House certified curtain walls. It's the ultra high performance ones that the North American market cannot satisfy. The North American market doesn't have. There isn't a North American other than our new system. There isn't there isn't an aluminum framed Passive House certified curtain wall manufactured by anyone in North America. So in projects, and so Passive House projects, whether they're in BC or Ontario, and we've looked at a few, but it's been European competitors more than Chinese ones.
Mike, Chinese or European competitors in your market?
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of on the modern new builds or contemporary new builds that are being done here in the GTA. A lot of stuff coming in from Polish, Greece, Europe. Good systems. I mean, you know, typically Raynor systems. A lot of that we're seeing. You know, they're coming glazed right on shipping containers right to site. You know, is there a price difference? There probably is, but selling against it would be, you know, if there's a problem, who's going to service it? Who's going to warranty the product? Who's going to take care of the liability? You know, the importers are typically small independents that, in most cases here, of European descent, that have maybe no small little showroom or something like that. How long it's going to last, we don't know. So there's ways to sell around it, but yeah, it's increasingly becoming more and more prevalent. And yeah, with this, you know, with the Passive House requirements, our products here, I guess, in North America are not as prevalent because there's not as much need or demand for it. So there's a cost factor to it, right? It's the initial cost of getting into it. I know there's some systems, actually on the West Coast, there are systems that are built here in Canada that meet Passive House. So that's good. Shout out to props to them on developing that, but it's an expensive task, and it's still quite a ways from being implemented on the residential side. I'm not sure on the commercial side how it's going, but I think we're years away from that. We will get there one day.
Yeah. Well, to Andrew's point, I for those of you who read the riveting article on this in Glass Canada magazine, you would have seen that I got digging around in the data from the Canadian Trade Tribunal decision on applying the tariffs, and they actually had quite a bit of data in there that's hard to find on the actual size of the Chinese curtain wall manufacturing capacity. Canada's entire annual production is less than the surplus that they're not using at one plant, one Jianghu plant in China. So this is why we need protection.
And, yeah. I mean, count the number of float plants they have in China. You know, I mean, it's probably over twice as many as we have in North America, not to mention zero in Canada, right? So.
Yeah, hey, Natalie, how depressing is it that we don't have float plants in Canada, right? I mean, you know, it's something we should be able to do here, right?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It really is.
Yeah, it's down to economics. I mean, I guess it'll come around.
Well, there was one actually put forward, I think, in your area, in your neck of the woods, Patrick, wasn't it? And then it was shut. It was
It was in Guelph.
in Guelph,
It was a
sorry, yeah.
Chinese. It was a Chinese plant. It was a deal made on a trade mission from the Ontario, the previous Ontario government.
Yeah.
And they wanted to get into right near where my grandparents lived in the Wellington County area, just on the other side of Guelph, and they shut it down on concerns about water use.
Yeah.
They felt the plant was going to use too much water. The good folks of the Guelph Town Council have their green credentials in place for sure.
Building a two tank float line in the greenest town in Ontario probably was never gonna get off the ground.
It was going to be a tough. It was going to be a tough sell in the first place.
It was a tough sell.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, the irony of it is that there's a Nestle plant right there in Guelph that uses an amount of water that is out of all comparison to what the float plant was going to use. But anyway, guys, listen. Okay, so we're coasting along here. We got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to go around the table on this next question. Let's start with Peter right now, and this is our big fresh thinking young executive segment. What do you think the most important thing is that's going to change, Peter, in the next, let's say, 10 years? What should we all be thinking about and getting ready for in our organizations to really address the challenges of the future?
Yeah, it's a good question, Pat. I think probably the three biggest things, excuse me, that we'll see in the next 10 years are things we've already touched on, but just to sort of codify them. Energy codes are going to be one of the biggest things to change in the next 10 years. Carbon, and I think embodied carbon in particular, are one of the big things that we're going to focus on a lot. To Mike's point, does the embodied carbon of move A versus move B make any sense? I think we have to really start looking at that. And then the third one is exactly what we were just talking about again, is domestication and domestic supply chains. And so I think I think that any business that can sort of hit those three points of being ready or ahead of the curve on energy codes, being ready or ahead of the curve on embodied carbon, and then either domesticating or sort of strengthening domestic supply chain, I think are going to do well. That's certainly our bet on the next decade plus, next decade or two. We're betting that those are going to be very important.
Yeah, that embodied carbon one is something that's coming, and I'm not sure if everybody's ready for it. Natalie, same question to you. Big changes you see on the horizon, or what's the most important thing?
Well, because the codes are more and more stringent, we also need not forget that the products need to have good durability and weatherability. So in the standards, we're going to see, test methods, test protocols that are going to require that products can withstand, the climates and the weather that we have here in Canada and the US. So it's not only about having an energy efficient product for 2 years, it's got to last longer than that. So we're raising the bar in that regard too.
Yeah, because to Peter's point about the embodied carbon, if you make it last longer, and everyone here has been talking about what's the reality of the environmental friendliness of these things, right? So you have to look at the whole picture, not necessarily just the energy savings aspect of it. So is that something you see that there's going to be a push by the standards authorities to say we want these things to last longer, to be in place longer?
Yeah, and it's the industry also that is pushing for it, and with the life cycle assessments and all those green aspects brought on as well, it's making sure that your product will last, your product will not create some pollution down the road when it's ready to go for the garbage. So there's this whole aspect of how durable the product will be. So the tests are being done accordingly. The test protocols and the test methods are being done accordingly. So the standards side of things is important, and they know and they're pushing it too.
Now, the interesting thing about Everlast windows is that they last forever, which it's right in the name, right?
Right in the name.
So
50 years anyway today.
Yes, that's right. So Mike has no concerns in that regard. Mike, what do you see as the big change?
To Peter's point earlier, where cost is going to come down over the next 25 years, but if we're producing less product and the product is lasting longer, right? How does it become a successful business model? And that's in any business, whether it's windows and doors or screw guns, for example. I mean, I remember staple guns. We used to send them out to get serviced. It would cost $150 a piece. Today, it's a disposable product because you can buy them on sale for $89.99. So things that back when I was younger and started this over 25 years ago, that were repair was so important on a tool. Today, it's a disposable item. So bearing in mind that we want to have longer lifestyles is also going to affect the amount of windows that we produce over our lifespan in business. So that's going to change how the cost factor comes into effect and how we're amortizing our new developments, our new product designs, our new testing, much more stringent testing, much more stringent codes, which costs a lot more money. But the most important part is we can all put in automation to build product. The challenges that we have right now is, we're running 2 shifts. We're running 19 hours a day. We have a bomb though. We can't find enough people to install them. And that issue is only going to get worse, not better. And with the evolution of going to triple glaze and needing more people on one site to complete a job, it's going to put a much more stringent or much more restriction on how much we can produce a day. We all have automated glazing lines. We can run 3 shifts a day if we want to. But if you can't install it, it doesn't matter how much you make. So I think workforce in all aspects of manufacturing, in all aspects of life, including, let's talk about our food industry right now, right?
Yeah.
Where we're bringing in people from out of town to cultivate the land and pick the fruits and vegetables. No one's doing it here. No one that's born Canadian is doing that. And that's going to be the biggest problem in every industry. That's not only a window and door industry issue. That is a issue in all aspects of life. Who's going to do the job? And until we figure that out, it's not going to. The baby boomers are starting to retire, and most of them are working until 70. And COVID now has, I think, created a generation of potentially can create a generation of kids between the age of 16 to 22 that say, we can get by life on $500 a week, right? Somehow, some way, right? Those are things that are going to change all industries, not just the window and door industry. So that's my biggest point.
That's a perfect segue to the guy who is up to his elbows in grease, getting his plant automated day in and day out. Andrew, touch on automation for us. What's the future? How far can glass manufacturers go with it?
Well, I think it could go quite a way. Price of robots and things like that have come down a lot, even in the last 5 years. And there's a lot of processes that are very repetitive that could lend themselves to it. I don't know. A lot of organizations aren't built yet to program the robots and fix the robots and that kind of stuff. So, I think it's definitely the future, for increasing productivity, so that we can compete at a global stage. But who's there right now? I think maybe the residential window side's probably a little ahead of the commercial due to some of the natures of repetitiveness that they can have. But I definitely believe it's the future.
Okay, we got 5 minutes to hit some questions from the audience. Natalie's got to get this one. In Ontario, we often follow Ontario Building Code's SB10 prescriptive method to determine the maximum U value of fenestration. When do you think there will be a change to SB10 in Ontario?
Well, that depends on the provincial jurisdiction. The NECB is the national effort, and then it belongs to every province to adopt their own code, among which Ontario has their own. But I would think that the provinces will follow the trend as it goes. For example, Quebec just adopted a new code very recently, and I believe you have someone that's going to talk to that this afternoon.
Yeah.
But it is a trend. I would say Canada probably leads the way, but then after that, it belongs to every province to adopt their own.
Right. And our I guess, sorry, Natalie's our code person on this. Our improvements for the durability and standards for caulking and sealants also improving in line with Windows. So yeah, well, I know I've heard discussions at IGMA about sealants and caulking and developing test standards. Like that's sort of an ongoing thing, right? Is they're always looking to update that stuff.
Yes, for sure. Especially, for example, in the commercial world, we see more and more structural glazing. If you're going to install windows where the sealant does all the job, or pretty much all the job, you need to make sure that you have a sealant that's going to last for a long time, and that's going to especially resist to UV and stuff like that. So yes, there's always some testing, and it's always making sure that the sealant will last for whatever they're made for.
Peter, you happy with what the sealant guys are delivering these days?
Yeah, so far so good. We, they have a tougher job in our world because they have to, sort of mix metals and composites, and they have to sort of bind the two together. But yeah, we've been really happy with the products that are on the market right now and the durability of them.
Yeah, there must be some differences on the fiberglass, eh? You have to buy. What do you have to get for that? That's different than aluminum.
I mean, it's a Dow 795 that we're using. It's not super specialized. It's relatively well used, but it works really, really well. But that's sort of the go-to product. But yeah, I mean, there's always new versions of that coming out, or from other manufacturers as well. So we're always open to new products, but that one works really well for us right now.
Some guy by the name of Greg Hildebrand, that many of you may know, has chimed in with, as far as the NAF standard goes, the durability requirements continue to be eroded by the loss of many prescriptive requirements and the mandate that the standard is not intended to address sustainability or durability. Litigation protection down south is impacting the quality of the standard. It's taking a lot of effort to remain vigilant. There you go. So yeah, Mike, what are we seeing there? Is there possible that NAFs won't be very enforceable in the States or here? Talk about enforcement, Mike. Talk about enforcement.
Enforcement. Non-existent.
Yeah.
So regionally, there's either a ton of enforcement or there's none at all. There's no accountability, really nothing's held, and no one's held accountable. And, I keep on stressing that, we can implement more codes and more stringent requirements, but all that does is it just makes it more expensive for the people that are legitimate fabricators to operate, and the ones that do not operate in a legitimate manner to be more successful in the marketplace. So the two go hand in hand. Enforcement is critical to ensuring that the codes are being met and that all the money that's being spent on testing and requirements have value in it. Because at the end of the day, to spend money on testing and making your product more expensive and then it not being enforced on site is problematic. Those are key factors. The other thing, because we're trying to get, before we were talking about the life cycles, but what's happening in today's marketplace is frames are getting thinner and glass is getting more prevalent to achieve the numbers on the PVC side of the world in the residential, and the life expectancy of windows are actually coming down our system that we built in 1990, it's in my parents' house right now. It's still operating, 30 some odd years later. And then, on the residential replacement side, new construction where it's driven by price, those are averaging anywhere between 8 to 15 years, depending on the amount that people use it. So the less they use, the longer they operate. It's like a car. Don't drive it as much and it'll last a little bit longer, right?
Yeah.
So I think enforcement and the energy requirements are driving people to go to thinner frames. And I personally feel systems that are not as good, in my opinion.
Yeah. Folks, we're up against it. It's 11:01. Thank you so much for the great discussion. You guys were terrific. We could go on and on, obviously. And I apologize. We did have some questions come in that we didn't have time to get to. I recommend you. I'll give out all your phone numbers now. No, I won't do that. And but you can track these people down if you want to talk more. Natalie Thibault, CIA, Andrew Dolphin, BV Glazing, Peter Deshensky, Glass Curtain, Mike Bruno, Everlast. Thank you all for coming.